Hello and welcome everyone to a Mulberry Leadership Conversation. I'm just going to give everybody a few moments to log on. Okay, it looks like everybody is rolling in. So again, welcome to a Mulberry Talent Partners Leadership Conversation. My name is Kelsey Daly and I am the Talent Acquisition Specialist here at Mulberry. So a little bit about Mulberry. We are a full service staffing and recruiting agency headquartered in Portland, Oregon, with an office in the Silicon Valley. We specialize in the professional placements of human resources, professional and financial office, payroll, and operations positions with direct hire, temp to hire, and temporary opportunities. I would encourage you to check out our website at mulberrytalent.com to see our full suite of service offerings and check out our previous leadership conversations and our upcoming leadership conversations. So jumping right into introductions, we are joined by Lauren Francis and Kea Meyers Duggan. Lauren is our fabulous founder and president at Mulberry. She started Mulberry back in June of 2017 and comes with over 25 years of talent acquisition experience. We're also joined by Kea. She is an award-winning entrepreneur, podcast host, recognized career coach, and speaker on overcoming fear. She has worked with hundreds of driven, emerging, and experienced leaders globally to help them build the courage they need to create their own holistic vision for success, then break that vision down into realistic steps they can take immediately. So without further ado, I would like to pass it off to Kea and Lauren. But before, I would like to say that we'd like to make today super interactive. So do not shy away from using the Q&A function on Zoom, and we'll try to get to any and all of those questions that come in. So passing it off to Kea and Lauren.
Oh, Kea, it's so good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Thank
is this our second or third time? Second time?
This is our second time. Yeah.
Second time. And I've joined your podcast, which was such a pleasure.
Yes.
Thank you for including me.
Absolutely.
So many people on today's show, be sure to check out Kea's website. And I chased Kea down when I had heard, I think I heard you speak, and then I was just like, I've got to find her. And so I chased her down, and here she is. She didn't have a choice.
Yes. I'm so glad that you did, Lauren.
Yeah. Well, welcome. And what do we have today?
Today, we are talking about courageous leadership and how being a courageous leader, how that boosts productivity, how it can impact profits, and how it can impact retention.
Great, because that's exactly what we need right now.
Yes, more than ever, than ever.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you all for joining. And I'm just going to pop a little question in the chat while people are filing in. And it really does kind of seed the conversation today. We'll talk about it in just a moment, but I'm just going to pop this into the chat to hear from you on when you hear or when you think about courageous leadership. I would love for you to describe in one word what that means to you. So I'll actually type that.
Mm-hmm.
Robust. Velda, thank you. Honest. Yep. Compassion. Absolutely. 100%. Loving all of this. Compassionate. Yeah. So
mine is transparency.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Mine is transparency.
Yes. And when I saw the word honest, that goes hand in hand with transparency. And another, name in that mix would be communication, open communication, right? Like there are a lot of things that I think we assume are happening or that people know or understand, and that's not always the case. And so it's safer to over communicate or just to kind of level the playing field to make sure that, hey, is everyone on board? Does this make sense? And bringing people along. We see another word in here about authentic. Absolutely. So it's almost as if people have gotten a sneak peek into today's presentation. And so that's why I wanted to kick off with this, to really kind of see this conversation. So thank you all, and keep throwing stuff in the chat. As Kelsey said, I'm going to run through this stuff pretty quickly so that we can chat on the other side, if you can stay past the 12:30 mark. But I want this to be interactive and really impactful for you, and that you can walk away with just one thing that's going to be helpful and maybe an aha moment for you. So with that, let me close this and share my screen. Go through the deck. And of course, Kelsey will let me know if there are questions, and just want to hear from you. I'm happy to stop as I'm going through. And of course, feel free to save your questions for the end as well when we wrap. So again, courageous leadership begins here. Couple steps that we can talk about today, and how leading courageously can boost profits, productivity, and retention. So why does this matter, right? Why are we talking about this? It feels obvious, but there are a couple things I want to point out that perhaps haven't been considered. But this first one, this is going to be a given, but in case you're rolling your eyes, I'm going to break down why this particular piece matters. In that COVID has reset everything, and we have heard this over and over again. So, like I said, I understand if you're rolling your eyes, because I know we're all sick of this, but here's why this matters. And it's because COVID, just at a very finite baseline, has caused all of us, whether you've done anything about it or not, it has caused all of us to reassess our lives, cause us to reassess our work, our professional lives, and that obviously has been indicated by the Great Resignation. In January alone of this year, 4.3 million people left their jobs. So it's still continuing on top of the 43 million people that left last year. So the records continue to be broken, which is an indicator this isn't going away. It's not going away anytime soon, and our lives and our work lives have been forever changed by this. And so just to kind of give you a visual of why this matters is COVID has really just blown the doors off of what was already an issue, what was already a frustration for employees and employers alike. But because of the way that the world works and the world of work works, we just power through, it'll be fine, we can deal with it, and we would continue putting Band-Aids on it. But with COVID, we didn't have anything to distract us. All we could be with is ourselves and what was right in front of us. And so as a result of this kind of revelation and kind of bubbling up of things, is that people are, and this has been well documented through a number of studies by McKinsey and Company, by Mindshare Partners, by Gallup, like every major research organization has touched on this in some way, shape, or form, that people are so burnt out, they feel isolated, they feel disengaged, and there are a lot of situations where people don't feel psychologically safe, meaning they're afraid to really be vulnerable, afraid to really share what's going on for fear that there's going to be retribution, that they will be seen as incompetent, et cetera. So this is everything that's bubbling up. And so, here comes COVID, again, blowing the doors off of everything, which then brought this kind of clash of our work and lives. And I saw a meme where someone said, it's not that we're working at home, we're living at work, right? So that just kind of blew everything up for us. And then that brought about more anxiety and uncertainty, not just about what was happening in society because of the virus, but also what's going on within ourselves. What are we discovering about ourselves now that we can't escape it? Which led to this reassessment of everything, which is why we started seeing these people leaving jobs en masse. And then languishing, which Adam Grant wrote about so prolifically last year. and continuing questions for purpose, exploring what meaning is for us, how we grow from this, and then realizing a real need for flexibility and ways that we can be psychologically safe wherever we are in our environments. So this is why courageous leadership is truly needed now more than ever. We need leaders who are really willing to reboot the workplace, to, raise their hand and stick their necks out to say, hey, we need to explore ways that we can be more accommodating to what employees are experiencing and what they're asking for, whether they are new people that are wanting to come into the doors or whether they are existing employees and are starting to feel disengaged. And I'll talk about kind of how that impacts companies financially. But we also need leaders who are willing to build a more inclusive culture and who are willing to really take efforts to destigmatize these feelings of failure, which, again, are part of this need for psychological safety and people kind of putting themselves out there and being more vulnerable. And in doing so, by taking a look at rebooting the workplace, we can build a healthier work-life integration, which people are so desperately seeking, and this ultimately has an impact on the bottom line. So Kelsey and Lauren have already shared a little bit more about me, but I'll give you just a teensy bit more. As Lauren said, and she was a wonderful guest, I'm the host of the Courage Permission Slip podcast, career and leadership coach, professional speaker, but I'm also from Chicago. I'm a huge Porsche enthusiast, so if there's anyone on here who is a performance driving nerd, please let me know. I'm a huge Chicago White Sox fan. That's my husband and I at the LA Dodgers game when the White Sox were in town. And I am an aspiring cowgirl. I have been riding horses my whole life, and I have this secret dream to have a ranch in Montana and live like Yellowstone without all the murders. So today, really want to talk about how we got here and why we're having this conversation, which I've kind of teased at a little bit. Really want to talk a little bit about the meaning of courage. It means a lot of things to different people, but really kind of exploring one meaning of courage that stands out to me and really is a great precursor to this conversation. We'll talk about the multiple benefits of courageousness and 2 actions that you can take today, starting today after this is over, toward being a courageous leader. So, what does courage mean? And as I said, it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Lauren on the Courage Permission Slip podcast, Lauren talked about how it's feeling the fear, but taking that step anyway, right? And what that amounts to is, and I really love this definition, it's by a professor, his name is Daniel Putnam, that it is the deliberate choice in the face of painful or fearful circumstances for the sake of a worthy goal. And that's really where this starts, is deciding to be courageous, deciding that you're willing to put your neck out, that you're willing to raise your hand to say, hey, we should really consider exploring some shifts because of the worthy goal that's on the other side of that. And that worthy goal could be better retention, better attraction for new employees that are wanting to come in the door because, and I'm sure, Lauren, you can speak to this, potential employees are not afraid to say, this is what I need to be successful in a new work environment. Can you provide this for me? Is there flexibility for this? So making the choice to be courageous is really the first step because choices that we make are not always going to be popular. They're not always going to be well received, but is that okay given what could be possible on the other side of that decision to put your neck out and raise your hand and say, hey, we want to look at something different here. So in the chat, would love to hear, what would prevent someone from being a courageous leader? You know, this and there, the thoughts are endless, but some things that I have heard along the way as I've been having a number of conversations with people is the fear of not being liked, the fear of being exposed as someone who is not a great leader, the fear of being fired or reprimanded. So, I mean, that's just one of the countless reasons why. And I see some things popping up in the chat, so let me open this up. Fear of looking dumb, yep. Bias, perceived repercussions, absolutely. Anyone else? I mean, these are right on the money. Another one that I've heard, fear of losing control or fear of not being in control. Yes, Brian, if I'm saying your name right, bucking against how it's always been done. Yes, I can't tell you how many times I have heard that. Lauren, I see you're shaking your head. Are any thoughts come up for you or things that you've heard?
It's exactly what everybody's talking about. And I think people are far more, I mean, I'm seeing that people are far more open to putting their stake in the ground and being courageous. And, you know, and hopefully, I mean, we're seeing just that it's working in many different situations, but I've had other people say, you know, it's not going to work in my environment and I need to move on.
Yeah. Right. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, because sometimes, you know, when you do that pros and cons comparison, you do have to decide, this is so far out of alignment with what I need and want in my life and my career right now that I have to move on. And that is courageous. Sometimes courage is staying and fighting the good fight. And sometimes courage is saying, you know what? I've had enough. I've had enough. It's time to move on. Oh, I see some other good ones popping in. Fear of being isolated, the lone voice of change, 100%. That other leaders are stuck in their ways and not open to hearing new ideas or opportunities. Yeah, and that kind of goes in line with Brian's comment of feeling isolated and the lone voice of change. Like, you know, we as people, right? Like, our brains hate discomfort. Our brains hate, you know, moments that feel unsafe, right? And so these things feel unsafe. They feel very unsafe. Thank you all for dropping your thoughts into the chat. But these are just a few of the benefits, and I'll talk about a few more, but being courageous is key because it's also contagious, right? So if you see someone raising their hand as the initial lone voice of change, then that gives you a little bit more courage to say, well, you know what? If Mary Sue can do it, I can do it, right? They're, you know, starting to feel that safety in numbers, but it certainly is contagious. And by you taking that first step, it gives other people that feeling of safety and confidence to do it themselves. It also enables confidence. An author, her name is Dani Shapiro. I heard someone had quoted her on a podcast where she said, confidence is overrated. You have to have courage first, because confidence only comes from doing. But if you're sitting back, if you're staying quiet, if you're saying, I'm afraid of looking dumb, right? I'm afraid of being isolated, then you're unable to build up that courage. But if you take that first step of being courageous, making that, again, deliberate choice, then that is what opens the door to starting to build that confidence. And as you might imagine, by you being the courageous one or one of a few courageous people, it fosters a situation or an environment of trust. It really allows you to see that, you know, especially if you have confided in this person about struggles and challenges that you're having, and then that person is the one that decides to go to bat for you, that can bring about that feeling that that person can be trusted and that you are in that safe place, which then leads to that next bullet of promoting psychological safety. Being courageous also creates a pathway for upskilling. So if we've destigmatized that feeling of failure and, retribution for making a mistake or having a stumble, then you're able to build skills because you're willing to take that step and take messy action and not do things 100% correct. And the only way that you can build skills is by taking that first step. And it also encourages innovation. Again, when you're feeling safe about making a mistake or trying something different and, sticking out, then it brings about new ideas and new ways of solving problems.
Well, Kea, I think the other thing that's interesting is once you start to take those courageous steps, it affects it's not isolated to work. It extends into your personal life and in your relationships and with your family, and you'll see yourself advocating for yourself differently than you were before. So it's really working that muscle and having the awareness to bring that forward. And I've seen that for myself, because we're all on this journey. And whether sometimes whether we're thinking about it or it just starts to become part of, how you are working on yourself and how you want to put your stake in the ground and really start to make some of these courageous changes. And they could be small. And I always tell people, start small. Sometimes that's the best way, but just do something. And so it's important because we have to take care of ourselves that way.
Yes. And, I'm so glad that you said that, Lauren, because that is one thing, so I talked earlier about making that deliberate choice. And here's the thing, you don't have to go from zero and, not saying we've all exhibited courage in our lives. You may not feel courageous, but we have all exhibited courage. So I know that all of you are already courageous. But just for the sake of this conversation, it's not like you decide, okay, I'm going to be courageous, and then you go from 0 to 100 in that sitting, right? Like everything, right? Like it's not like you flip a table and now you're just saying no to everything. Yes, no, it is, what can I do to just be 5% more courageous in this situation? And then you do that, and there's a psychological term called the confidence competence loop. So when you take one step, like I said, confidence comes from doing. When you take one step and you see, okay, that worked. I didn't die. I didn't get fired. I didn't get a nasty gram, right? Like all of these things, you see that, and then you're like, okay, I'm capable. That worked. Now, and then you're feeling motivated, and that confidence has been built up. So then you think, okay, let me take it a little bit further. What's one more thing that I can do? And as you perfectly said, you work on it in one area of your life, and then it starts to spill over in the best way in other areas of your life. Just like when things are not going well in one area of your life, it spills over, it bleeds over into other areas. So this is a two-way street, but you are absolutely right, Lauren. Little steps, and when you take a step in one area, it can impact other areas in the best way possible. So, so going on that, if you were just going to be 5% more courageous, when leaders exhibit that, when they exhibit the decision to lead and act with more courage, studies show that 95% of workers, so their direct reports, their peers, are inspired to contribute their best work because they see someone else that's, really kind of giving it their all and being an advocate not only for themselves but for others and leading with values. Then others are inspired to do their best work too. Kind of going with that, it's contagious. But then also for leaders who act with more courage, employees are 11 times more likely to experiment and try new things. So we talked about how it encourages innovation. And then, as you might imagine, more courageous, more morally acting leaders, they have a more positive influence on employee retention. So just with these three metrics alone, when leaders do act with more courage, the bottom line is people are more confident and they're more engaged. And according to Gallup, these two things alone are key indicators not only of career well-being, but these are also indicators of your personal well-being. But these two pieces of confidence and engagement, they are also key indicators of positive financial outcomes for companies.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, employee engagement is the number one indicator of positive financial outcomes for companies. So
would you say that leaders, their responsibility to their employees is to invite people to be courageous? Would you say?
I do, yes, and leaders have to model it. So they can't just say, hey, raise your hand, let me know, communicate. They also have to be doing it because leaders have more authority, if you will, right? They have more ability to move the needle as opposed to people who are more junior than them, or I should say less junior, and don't have as much at stake. Mm-hmm. Those individuals have to see leaders modeling what they're inviting. So yes, I think it's a both and, or yes and, that they have to invite it, but they have to model it as well.
Understood.
Yeah.
And we
Kelsey,
had one question.
Yeah,
we had one question come in from Velda. She says, how do you resonate courage in speech?
Ooh. So first of all, it is speaking within yourself first, right? So saying it out loud to yourself first. So in coaching, we talk about mirror work. So if there is something that is on your spirit that you really want to speak and advocate for yourself or your team or what have you for, you have to practice saying it out loud first. Hear yourself say it. Practice it over and over again so that it's as easy to say as it is saying your phone number or your email address. It's important to feel it within yourself. But then also, a lot of times when when there's something so important that we want to say or that we want to advocate for ourselves for, we hold our breath. We hold our breath. It's almost as like we're holding in the thing that we want to say and do. Breathe it out. And I'm really calling in my transformational coaching is there are so many messages within our body that go up to our brains versus the messages that come down from our brains to the rest of our body. So if you can feel it, get out of your head and really feel and experience that thing that you want to be courageous and confident about in your speech, you have to speak it into existence within yourself and in your environment first. And like I said, practice makes perfect, or more perfect. Thank you for that question. I hope that was helpful. So, with these metrics that I just talked about the engagement, being innovative, more retention, that's an opportunity to make it rain, to have that positive financial bottom line impact. And just some statistics on that is that the investment in a disengaged worker while they're still in the company, that is, and I say only, I know $9,000 is a lot of money, especially if you're a smaller firm, but the investment Ideally, just at a base level, according to Gallup, is $9,000 to retain that employee, to help them to shift that disengagement to more engaged, versus the $25,000 to $100,000 that it takes to attract and bring in new employees. And I'm sure, Lauren, you have thousands of statistics on the difference of having to bring in people versus support the people that are already there. Mm-hmm. When you, as a leader, when you lead with more courage and you are actively engaging your team and your peers, those employees are 2.5 times more likely to stay for 2 or more years. If they are feeling supported, if they're feeling, that they are safe and that, that we've destigmatized failure, they're 2.5 times more likely to stay. There is reported 17% higher productivity. Companies experience 20% higher sales and 21% higher profitability when all of these things are working on those cylinders. You're engaging employees, you're supporting them psychologically, you've created inclusiveness, and you're leading, you're modeling that courage that you are asking your employees to have. Mm. So, two actions that you can take starting today to be a more courageous leader. And again, like Lauren and I said, just 5% more courageous, not the whole kit and caboodle, just 5%. The first is anchor yourself within yourself. And what I mean by this is have that fearless self-awareness, that fearless self-ownership, and that starts by defining and applying your personal core values, but it also includes defining and applying and really combining that with the company's values. So do your values and the company's values line up? And just like you were saying, Lauren, like when the disconnect is too big, then it really is hard for employees and leaders and junior level people alike to stay. But you first have to start with checking in with your own values. What's really vitally important to you? What are those deal breakers? What are those table stakes for you? The next is to name and embrace your fears. What keeps you up at night? What are the things that you rehearse and, talk to yourself about when you're in your private moments? I heard someone say, and I thought this was perfect, you have to name it and claim it to tame it. We all have fears. None of us are exempt from them. But if you keep stepping over them, they grow. Fears thrive and worries thrive in darkness. But if you can shine a light on it, it takes the power away. Mm. Avoid shooting on yourself. This is this like constant negotiation between our current selves and our ideal selves and what we think we're supposed to be doing, what we think are the conditions for things working out for us, for things going well. It's that constant negotiating, which when you do something that you think you should do, the result is not always what you think it's going to be. So avoiding that should of, I should be more this, I should be less this. When you can anchor in yourself and who you are as an authentic person with integrity, those shoulds go away. And then last but not least, ask yourself, what am I assuming? When things aren't going great, when there is tension and worry and fears popping up, take a moment, just a moment to ask yourself, what am I assuming right now? What do I expect is happening? And I'm just curious, because this is a step that a lot of many people, especially people that I coach, step over. I'm curious to hear how often do the people in this room here with us today, how often are you checking in with your values? how often, and embodying them, not just checking in, but maybe embodying one or two in any given day or moment. How often are you checking in with your own fears and assumptions?
Another Yeah, one
Go
thing I
ahead.
was going to add is that what I have done with myself in the past is I've said to people, I'm working on being courageous, or I'm working on not interrupting as much, like I just did with you. I'm trying to, yeah, but I'm trying not to, I'm working on this. So I just want you to know, while let's say we're having lunch or a conversation, this is something I'm working on. And so what it tells the person you're with is, oh, there's something that Lauren is working on. And so it's out there and it's transparent. And so the same thing goes. And then people can help with that. So
Right.
and so you have a partner and bringing people into the conversation.
Yeah. So in addition to that naming and claiming, and you said it, I'm really glad that you said that, about part of those fears is the fear of not appearing competent, right? The fear of being found out that you don't know something. The more that you can say, hey, this isn't my strong suit, I'm working on this, just as you said, then that invites, first of all, it invites accountability. You are owning your stuff, but then it allows other people in to be resources, or to be a resource, or to connect you with resources. And that, as you said, that adds to the transparency, the honesty, the trust, and that feeling of safety. Really, really important. Thank you for that. And the second action that you can take is to start with the end in mind. And the example that I love for this is, I'm sure everyone on here has used some kind of map app, whether it's Waze or Google Maps or something. We've all used something like this to find our way. And that if you don't have the exact address or even the intersection, Google Maps or Waze cannot give you the steps, the approximate direction to get there. And the same goes for us. You have to know where you are trying to go approximately. And by that, you have to know what kind of leader you want to be, how you want to be showing up in your work. You have to know that first in order to get the steps for how to get there. And there's no one way to be a great leader. There's no one way, because in addition to the ideal qualities of leadership, we also have to take into account our unique abilities, talents, skills. We have to take into our lived experience. All of these things matter, but you have to know how you want to be showing up to get those steps. And so some input that you can consider as you're deciding what your leadership style is going to be is, first, checking in on what your company's success metrics are. What's important to, the leaders of the leaders at your company. But then you also, and that kind of is in line with your company's values, which I was talking about in the last step. But you also have to know, what does success look like for you? What's meaningful for you? Because that's another thing that I could, that's a whole other webinar of taking the opportunity to define success for ourselves. So often we take on society's definitions or the shoulds of what success is. Success is a one-to-one definition. You have to decide for yourself. So know that for you, so that you can then use that as an input for your leadership strategy. Accountability, when you know what the end point is. So just as Lauren and I were talking about, when you know what your growth areas are and what you need support with, then that opens the door for you holding yourself accountable, but also for other people to hold you accountable. And leaders have to be held accountable, just as junior staff have to be held accountable. And then also, it's important to communicate openly and often. These are real signs of courageousness. And just as we said, like, we make a lot of assumptions on what people know, should know, you know, and we're assuming based on behaviors that people are exhibiting, but that could be a front to cover up for any unsafety, imposter feelings that people may be experiencing. So communicate openly and often is a great way to help you get inputs for your roadmap and to set out on the path that you've set for yourself and your team and your company.
Mhm.
So just to recap, some steps, just 2 of many, to being a courageous leader: anchor yourself in yourself and start with the end in mind. What does success look like for you and what does it mean? And then move forward or create your action plan accordingly.
Ah,
And that's it.
oh, thank you so much, Kea. This was so helpful. I enjoyed
Wonderful.
I enjoyed your stories, and what you shared today was just so powerful. So thank you so much for
Thank you.
joining all of us
Thank you
today.
so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And thank you all for the great questions and thoughts in the chat. That love seeing that. Thank you all for your engagement.
Yeah, thank you. And here are just a few ways to stay in touch with us. So feel free to connect with Kea, myself, or Lauren on LinkedIn, or shoot us an email if you have any questions. And then stay in touch. We'll have some upcoming leadership conversations and career conversations that'll be going live on the schedule. So stay tuned for that. And then we just want to thank you for choosing to fly with Mulberry. We know you have many different options when it comes to webinars, and we're so happy that you chose ours. And thank you so much, Lauren and Kea.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. This was great. And thank you for your questions and observations, Lauren. I always love hearing from you.
Oh, great. Well, good. Well, everyone have a good week, and thanks for joining us, and we'll be back again soon.
All right.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.